You know, miscarriage is more common than you might think, with 3 million happening each year in the United States. Between 10 to 20% of pregnancies end in a miscarriage.
A brutal murder, a flawed investigation, witnesses who lied under oath.
In a Health Watch, the wife of former Eagles quarterback Nick Foles has revealed she had a miscarriage over the weekend.
The Lynette White case is filled with shocking twists and unanswered questions that could change everything.
Yeah, an absolutely tragic incident which unfolded here over the weekend, and Sky News can confirm now the name of the 3 people inside the car found just off this roundabout outside of Cardiff who died.
Could the wrong people have been convicted?
Its latest plan to tackle cross-channel migration, charities say it will demonise refugees, but a people smuggler tells us that the wave of migrants will just carry on coming.
Stay tuned as we dive into the dark details and uncover the truth behind this infamous case. You won't want to miss this! The murder on February 8, 1988. A young prostitute named Lynette White was brutally murdered inside a flat in Cardiff, a city undergoing significant changes. The flat was being used as a brothel, and Lynette had been waiting for a client. What followed was a horrifying scene. Her body was discovered 20 hours later, dragged to the floor between the bed and the window. Evidence at the scene was chilling: unused condoms, money on the bed, and an arc of bloodstains sprayed across the wall. The most shocking discovery was that Lynette had been stabbed over 50 times in a violent, frenzied attack. The investigation revealed that neither sex nor robbery seemed to be the motives for the crime. There was an unidentified palm print found on the wallpaper, and bloodstains under the window appeared to be from someone other than Lynette. Despite the horrific nature of the crime, no clear suspect emerged immediately. This brutal murder set the stage for what would become one of the most controversial cases in British legal history. The investigation in the months following Lynette White's murder, Cardiff was gripped by fear and uncertainty. The police were under immense pressure to solve the case, but they initially lacked clear evidence. A suspect, described as a man with blood on his hands, was seen near the scene of the crime, but despite the promising lead, he was never found. The investigation hit a deadlock, and the police were left with little to go on. The community, particularly in Butetown, where the murder took place, seemed unwilling to cooperate. Tensions ran high, with locals hesitant to speak out, possibly fearing the consequences of involvement in such a brutal crime. Then, in a surprising turn of events, the case was revived when 3 key witnesses came forward. These individuals, who had previously lied in their initial statements, now confessed to their involvement in the murder. Their testimonies shifted the focus to 5 local men, including Ronald Actie and his cousin John Actie, who were ultimately charged with the crime. However, the controversy surrounding the case was just beginning, with doubts about the credibility of the witnesses and the investigation itself. The trial of the 5 men accused of Lynette White's murder became a highly publicized event, drawing intense scrutiny due to the controversial nature of the case. Despite no forensic evidence linking the accused to the crime, the prosecution relied heavily on the testimonies of the key witnesses, who had initially lied and later changed their stories. Among these witnesses was Leanne DeAngelis, a prostitute who had known Lynette and who claimed to have witnessed the crime. The defense raised significant doubts about the reliability of these testimonies, highlighting the lies and inconsistencies in the witnesses' statements. They argued that the prosecution's case was built on the shaky foundation of untrustworthy witnesses, some of whom had their own criminal backgrounds. As the trial progressed, the lack of concrete evidence against the accused men became more apparent. Yet, despite the weaknesses in the prosecution's case, 3 of the 5 men were convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. The trial highlighted serious concerns about the integrity of the investigation and the methods used to obtain confessions, especially when one of the key defendants, Stephen Miller, was found to have been psychologically coerced during his interrogation. Witnesses' lies. The reliability of the witnesses in the Lynette White case became a central issue during the trial. Leanne DeAngelis, one of the most crucial witnesses, had initially lied to police and withheld information for months before suddenly coming forward with a new version of events. Her claims suggested she and another prostitute had heard Lynette's screams and ran to her flat, where they found the horrific scene. DeAngelis' version of the events implicated the 5 accused men, including Ronald Actie and his cousin John Actie. However, The defense pointed out that Ville DeAngelis was far from a credible witness. She had a history of lying and had been involved in several false claims in the past. Her motivations were also questioned, as she had been known to live a lifestyle where lying and compromising with authorities were often necessary for survival. Additionally, her relationship with some of the accused men raised suspicions about her involvement in the case. Further investigation into Ville DeAngelis' testimony uncovered inconsistencies and contradictions. It was revealed that some of the details she provided, such as hearing the screams from her flat across the street, were scientifically impossible. Independent tests showed that the screams, even amplified, would have been barely audible from her location. This raised serious doubts about her credibility, as her testimony played a key role in the conviction of the accused men. Forensic gaps. The forensic evidence in the Lynette White case was deeply problematic and raised significant questions about the integrity of the investigation. While the crime scene was filled with blood, palm prints, and other physical traces, none of the evidence directly linked the accused men to the murder. A key piece of evidence was an unidentified palm print found on the wallpaper, which was never matched to any of the defendants. Additionally, there were bloodstains on Lynette's jeans and the wall, but DNA tests showed that the blood didn't belong to any of the accused. The forensic analysis also uncovered the presence of blood that could have come from the killer, which was not traced back to any of the men arrested. This raised the possibility that another person, whom the witnesses did not identify, might have been involved in the murder. Despite this, the prosecution's case focused on the accused, and the jury was urged to ignore the forensic gaps and instead rely on the questionable testimonies of the witnesses. This lack of solid forensic evidence was a major issue throughout the trial and contributed to the growing doubts about the safety of the convictions. The forensic shortcomings were a critical aspect of the case that, if properly addressed, could have potentially exonerated the accused men. However, the absence of a clear explanation for the unidentified blood and prints left many unanswered questions about the true perpetrator of the crime. Unanswered questions. Despite the convictions and the prolonged investigation, many critical questions surrounding Lynette White's murder remain unresolved. One of the most pressing mysteries is the identity of the so-called sixth man, the person whose blood was found at the crime scene but was never linked to any of the accused. The presence of this blood, which did not match any of the defendants, suggested that another individual might have been involved in the crime. Yet this lead was never fully explored. The police investigation also failed to identify the man seen with blood on his hands outside the murder house, a key suspect who was never traced. Witnesses who had initially provided valuable information later retracted their statements, casting further doubt on the credibility of the entire case. As new evidence continued to surface, questions about the reliability of the confessions and the role of the witnesses remained at the forefront. The absence of physical evidence tying the accused men to the crime, along with the questionable methods used to secure their confessions, left a cloud of doubt hanging over the case. Even after the trial, many still questioned whether justice had truly been served, or whether an innocent person, or multiple people, had been wrongfully convicted. The case highlights the imperfections of the justice system, particularly when critical evidence is either overlooked or ignored, and remains a symbol of the risks involved in convicting individuals based on flawed investigations. Was justice served, or have innocent lives been ruined? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an update on this case. What do you believe happened that night in Cardiff? And stay tuned for our next video, The Lady in the Lake, a UK murder mystery hidden for years, coming soon!